Everyone just join into the webinar section. We're about to get started, making sure our speakers can turn on the microphone. Joshua, I'm not sure I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that works perfectly. Thank you. All right, we're gonna get started soon. First of all, welcome, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depends on where you're at. We're gonna get started with today's webinar soon, in just a few minutes there. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions in the question section. And at the end of the webinar, we'll be answering your questions, and just in case you have some. I'm your moderator, Rung, from DJI Enterprise Solution Engineering team, and we can get started with today's webinar. So today we have a webinar covering DJI Dock solution. I am very excited to invite my speakers for today's session, and that is Joshua, as well as Brian from the Wiz Company, a very well-known construction company. Joshua, we have met before years ago, I believe. It's been a while, isn't it?
Yeah, we met, I think, early on in my drone journey at a DJI conference in Texas.
Yeah. Could you tell our audience what's your role there in Wiz Company, and what's your journey there with the drone?
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, Run. Thank you. And yeah, I have been in the construction industry now for about 26 years. I've been with the Whites Company for 6 years. I am the director of VDC and Field Solutions. So the senior executive over all of our VDC operations. Our drone program falls under our purview as well. And I got started in drones in about 2016, 2017, about the time the FAA started putting guidelines behind the use of drones on projects. And I assisted in creating a drone program for another GC that I was with prior to joining Whites. And it's part of the reason that I am at Whites. Whites recruited me, just before COVID, with limited experience in the VDC realm, in the technology side of things when it came to drones and what we call field solutions, LiDAR scanning, other things like that. And so they recruited me to kind of tell them what to do and guide that process. I am very proud of the team that we've built over the last 5-6 years. We went from 2 full-time VDC people for the entire company to over 30 now. And we've created a very, very robust drone program. We have nearly 50 pilots company-wide. And Brian, you'd have to tell me how many drones we have right now, because I think it's well surpassed the 50 mark, if I'm not mistaken. But
we're closer to 65 or 70 now.
Yeah. So very robust program. A majority, if not all of those systems are DJI currently. We love the equipment and the ease of use, as well as the price point, and just being able to train pilots and utilize that system. And like Run said, today we're going to talk about docks a little bit, and our journey here with docks over the last couple of years.
Awesome, great. And we also have Brian here from the Whites Company as well. And Brian and I have actually been working on the dock when it comes to new features, and is extremely knowledgeable when it comes to construction and providing us valuable feedback. So you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Run. Run's been super helpful with rolling out these docks to our projects. So I've been with the Whites Company. My name's Brian Owens, with the Whites Company for about 2 years. I recently graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from BYU, Idaho, and didn't see myself in the construction industry, but I loved working with drones and robotics and a lot of these what we call field solutions, and so was recruited. Ended up meeting Josh and we went back and forth for quite a while, and found the spot for me here on the Whites at the Whites company, and I help run our drone and field solutions equipment here at Whites. So.
Well, thank you, Brian, and great to have both of you guys here today with us. And our audience are very like to know how the Whites companies have been using or adapting drone technology and moving forward to Dock now. So looks like you guys have been having a lot more pilots. That's great. But for today's agenda here, just quickly, we're gonna do a introduction on the Whites company when it comes to the drone program, when it comes to the adoption of drone in the box solutions in construction space, and what was the major factor or reasons the company decided to use drones to collect the data, and how are these data going to be useful, right? Next, I'm going to do a quick introduction on the Dock 3, our latest drone in the box solution from DJI Enterprise. Then we're going to cover some functionalities from FlightHub 2 and overall workflow when using the Dock 3 in construction space. So recently, I said recently, but it was actually in June, we have released several AEC functionalities within FlightHub 2. So I'd like to go through that. And last but not least, we'll also have Brian as well as Joshua talk about the existing use cases within Whites that is using the DJI Dock solution. Okay, with that being said, let's get started. I'll leave this part probably to you, Joshua, to kind of introduce to our audience how the Whites becoming, well, when I checked the data, it was a large, very large company within US that is a general contracting and doing construction work.
Yeah, thanks again, Ren. Yeah, the Whites company is a 170-year-old construction firm, all service construction firm. We are the oldest contractor west of the Mississippi, at least that's what we tell everybody, and nobody's argued otherwise. We are based in Des Moines, Iowa. We are consistently in the in our top 100 list. That location within that list fluctuates based on revenue and projects that we do. One of the things about Whites is we've been around for 170 years. That there's a reason for that, and it's because we have kind of that long-term perspective, and we don't let the here and now really impact how we pick work. But we have 10 offices across the country, but we're working in over 20 states. For a period of time, we were the 7th largest contractor in the state of California, and we've never even had an office there, just based on the projects that we were doing in that state. We do all types of work. So, data centers right now, we are one of the top data center contractors in the country. In addition to that, I mean, we have an industrial group that is doing everything from grain bins and silos to food processing facilities. We have commercial groups working on student housing and senior living projects across the country. We have an aviation group that does a number of things at different airports. If you've been through the new terminal in Kansas City, that was a project we worked on with a JV partner here just a few years ago. So we're involved with all types of construction, and over the last 170 years, you can imagine the types of projects that we've been involved with, which is really great. I mean, especially on the VDC kind of technology side, we get to dabble in all sorts of different project types. We're spread across the country. Our VDC team is we have a representation from coast to coast. I think one of the important things to understand about Whites is, while we are one of the oldest contractors in the U.S., we were acquired by a Rascom Construction, which is one of the largest general contractors in the world and the largest in the Middle East. We are the U.S. entity, U.S. arm of that, and we have a number of sister companies that all kind of report up through the White's management. So we have a federal arm under Contract Watts that does a lot of work with the Navy and the U.S. government. We have our own electrical firm, which is EPI, that is mainly working on data centers nationwide. We have an engineering side of the business that is based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, that does engineering for a lot of our industrial projects. So again, very diverse company involved in a lot of different things across the country.
That sounds great. So I've started collecting some questions from the questions chat, and we'll be going through these questions later on. But if I do find there's a slot for kind of bring these questions in, I will make sure to do so. Thank you, Joshua, for the introduction. Okay, so can you give us a little history before we move on about how you guys been using drone and why drone? Why not a conventional way for collecting data? And what does drone brings the value overall? And most importantly, now we're moving from drone to drone in the box. How do you see that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. We started our drone program. I think prior to me joining White's, we had a very kind of sporadic drone adoption across the company. I think we only had 2, maybe 3 pilots in the entire company. Everybody was kind of on their own, doing their own thing. And, I think like many in the industry, they were, kind of that low-hanging fruit, putting the drone up once a week, once a month, taking a couple photos, and just, using that as part of a progress report that goes to the client or owners. My experience with drones, we saw very early, when I started kind of adopting drones, working with Run, working with DJI, working with some others in the industry, Drone U, Drone Deploy, Propeller, just kind of name a few. We started seeing the value and the amount of data that we could obtain with very basic data collection. Doing a little bit more flying with the drone, mapping missions, doing orbits around a project, and then processing that data in different ways. And very quickly, we started seeing the value of that data. And when we started our drone program, that was kind of the directive. It wasn't just, hey, we're going to do the bare minimum here. It was what is going to serve our project teams the best, what is going to be the most valuable information. One, to protect Whites, in different situations, but also to help us make decisions on the projects. So as we started kind of collecting that data, processing it into more intricate deliverables, the recognized value started growing. Our project teams started recognizing that, hey, I don't need to walk out on the 600-acre site to go look at something. I can pull up the drone flight that was done last week, and I'm going to get more data from that than, that perspective, that aerial bird's eye view perspective than I'm going to get from, walking out there on the ground. Our project team started recognizing that value, started utilizing it on, more day-to-day basis, and they started asking for it more. And so that's really kind of driven our growth. It's driven the number of pilots that we have and getting people more experience in collecting that data. And now, you look at some of our key projects, our, $250 million plus projects, we typically have multiple pilots on those projects. And what we're finding is that's still not enough information. The team is still wanting, kind of almost demanding more information. And so we're seeing, these types of projects wanting to fly the drone more than once a week, wanting to fly it every day or every other day and collect more recent data to help make decisions. They want to see that information front and center. So we've steadily seen the drive, the demand, the increase over the last 5 or 6 years, which has led us to the point where we're at now, where we're starting to implement docks. Now, to the second part of your question, the journey with Dock. I'm a very cautious person by nature. Brian knows, Brian's kind of wants to get out there, try all the cutting edge stuff, and I've got to pump the brakes on that to some extent. I want him to do all of those things, but we're doing it cautiously, we're doing it intelligently, and we're making sure that, hey, we're identifying problems and wanting to solve problems with the solutions that we're implementing. And we started testing some drone docks early. We were looking at a few different methods where we weren't planning on buying the drone docks. We were leasing or renting. We were trying them out on atypical projects where we had airspace issues, just trying to understand limitations. And I think we had some success in that regards, but we also had some failure, and we recognized that, and we learned from it. I think failure is a great way to learn when you fail early and you recognize it and you make the adjustments needed to be successful and turn those kind of failures into successes. And that's where we are right now, is we're learning from our mistakes, recognizing the real value, and making adjustments accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's a great approach there, and just kind of validating the solution with drawing the box before making massive adoption. I'm just curious, Joshua, what was the major, well, I wouldn't say issues, but challenges when switching from drone to drawing the box solutions? Well, I get the demand, right? You want to collect the data more oftenly. So what was the challenge there to begin with? For example, when you first leased the dock system.
Some of the first challenges, again, you look at the cost, you look at the price of it, and making the justification to spend that kind of money on an untested solution, right? So again, we looked at what can we try without buying, what can we test. So again, we were looking at systems that were not all inclusive or all incorporated. We were looking at a third-party dock that utilized equipment or drones that we already had, which were DJI drones. And the integration piece became a challenge. Third-party hardware integrating with DJI software and DJI hardware. And what really, I think, drove a lot of the most concerning challenges going that method was the airspace. If we were on a job site that had, differing airspaces. I mean, some of these job sites are hundreds of acres, right? So what we ran into was airspace changes right in the middle of the job site. And the integration caused a lot of problems with the communication system and, the software trying to overcome those airspace challenges. And so what it resulted in was our BDC, our technology experts, the person that we assigned to kind of get this set up and test it out, spending way too much time trying to overcome those challenges. And it just got to the point where, hey, we need to maybe switch things up. We have not had those issues since we switched to, a fully integrated DJI system.
Which is something I'm gonna spend like a few minutes to go through, but feel free, Brian and Joshua, to kind of jump in as well. So the next part of in today's webinar, I'm gonna do a quick introduction on the latest DJI Drawing in the Box solution we have. So like Joshua said, Drawing in the Box is somewhat new, but it's actually not that new, right? So we first released our Drawing in the Box solution about 2 years ago, back in 2023. And we have another model a year later, and that was the Dock 2. The first one was designed for automation. It was specifically designed for tasks that you need drone right away, so it's ready to go. So in that concept, you have essentially a pilot on site, on call. Whenever you need to have the drone collect data, that Dock itself act as a pilot, right? So that fast turnaround time is the key. But the first Dock wasn't essentially designed for mapping or precision data collection with a very accurate GPS timestamp. That's why moving to the Dock 2, the team have put dots into this. and we had an internal discussion talking about how we want to make this dock specifically more suitable for construction clients and customers, because we want to do mapping, right? We want to do precision mapping. We want to make sure the data collected can be comparable, can be archived in a way you can review the data over and over again. So that was something, the demand was there. So it was great. And this year we have released Dock 3. So Dock 3 is definitely an upgrade from the Dock 2, as it's more reliable. It is more suitable for more extreme environments, whether hot or cold environments. So the team have done a lot of optimization, replacing the antenna of the RTK. In case you don't know what that is, it's just essentially a GPS unit that can help direct the drone where it is at. Previously with Dock 2, you were experiencing the long conversion time because the antenna is built into the dock itself. With the Dock 3, the antenna is outside. So a few optimization like that have been done with the Dock 3 to make the work flow or the work overall more efficient. So what does that mean, right? So that means quick turnaround time, extremely fast takeoff. You can take off the drone within the box within 10 seconds when you send out a command for flight execution. In addition, it supports accessories like the RTK, our RTK base station, as a relay station that you can mount on top of the building. So when the drone flies over on the other side of the building, it kind of picks up the reception through that relay station to maintain the connection there for safety measurements. And of course, the system is BVLOS ready. So BVLOS stands for Beyond Vision Line of Sight. So to legally operate a drone in the box or drone overall, you have to maintain that line of sight. So Beyond Vision Line of Sight waiver kind of pass that so that means you can operate the drone within the box remotely when you're sitting in the office, well, with a visual observer. So that was an interesting topic too. Actually, I was going to ask Joshua and Brian, when it comes to BVLOS, have you guys got a BVLOS? I mean, our audience will be interested to know how that process is like. Is it difficult? How long does it take?
Yeah, no, that was a lengthy process. It wasn't. I'll say DJI was super helpful. Ron, your team was fantastic in helping us get our. So Whites now has a national class, so we can operate in Class G airspace nationally with BVLOS operations with the Dock 2 and Dock 3, and so we started that early this year, working on that BVLOS waiver. We worked closely with the FAA and with DJI on filling that that submission out for that waiver to get BVLOS operations rolling, and then it takes about 90 days, I think, for the FAA to get back. I think it was a little bit shorter than that for us. But
was it more like a case-to-case or case-by-case scenario? It depends on where your site is. It could take longer or more information needs to be provided there. Yeah, but generally speaking, about 90 days.
Right, and we went for like the national waiver so that we, in any Class G airspace, we could fly these docks. So, but if we need specific clearance, then we can reference our waiver that we already have to get the specific flights done.
So that's something our audience would like to get clarified perhaps is when you have a waiver submitted to FAA, especially for BVLOS, as long as it's specifically to one drone model or one drone in the box model, it can be applied to all the sites you have, right? So you don't have to refile and wait another 90 days for that. So that's something people get confused on. They thought you have to do another file application there. But
well, that depends on the airspace. So just overall, I don't know the audience how many come from a drone program or a part of an internal company drone program, but I want to emphasize, I mean, the relationship with the FAA is something that people are somewhat afraid of, and I'm again kind of proud of our team. We established our enterprise account with the FAA very early, and through the years we've seen kind of how that relationship has evolved, and the FAA is a lot more responsive now than they were in the past. I remember very specifically a number of projects that we would submit authorizations on or request waivers on, and some sides of that authority would require us to submit an individual authorization for every single flight. Some of them would, we could do long periods of time. It's evolved to the point where they are very if you are a known entity, you're doing your due diligence in trying to be as safe as possible and to follow kind of all of their rules. They are very responsive to you. In most situations, they will have a contractor reach out to you if there is something in a authorization or a waiver request that is questionable or they need it worded different. I believe we have been flying on 3 or 4 international airports at any given time for the last like 4 or 5 years. And so we've had a lot of interaction with it. Brian has taken that over for our team and has done a great job with it. And as we looked at doing the BVLOS waiver, we asked them and kind of started talking to them, like, what would they approve? What do they think is sufficient? I mean, we're Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, we're at 100 feet nationally for Class G airspace. We have a number of projects that we're looking at that, hey, 100 feet doesn't work, and are in not Class G airspace, and it's just making sure you have kind of that open line of communication and an understanding of what they're wanting and what they're looking for, and they've been really reasonable with working with us.
Yep.
Yeah, and also we provide a template if you want to apply BVLOS for your drone in the box application there. So that's gonna be a good start there, right? Okay, I'm gonna continue and talk about robust and reliability, because that's one of the major improvements compared to the prior docks we have. That is working temperature has been, or the working temperature range has been increased from negative 30 degrees to 50 degrees Celsius. And it's IP rated for the both dock and the drones inside. We gotta invite both of you, Joshua and Brian, to a test site we have. It's basically a farm full of docks, like dozens of docks, operating nearly 24/7, like accumulating flight hours for reliability tests. But under light shower conditions, harsh environments like snow, heat, it has an AC built-in, so it keeps the system cool while charging the battery. And the battery is not fully charged unless you design or you set it to be fully charged. So to preserve battery lifetime, and it's about and it has like 27 miles per hour wind resistance doing the takeoff and landing. So yeah, that kind of was a frame there to show the farm there. But the system was designed to be reliable, and now the drone inside was something highly integrated. A lot of sensors. We have a few cameras there. First, we have telecam. We have a mid telecam. So these two function as a zoom camera. They basically can zoom in pretty far and for inspection purpose. We also have a wide angle cam that's going to be your main camera for photogrammetry or data collection when it comes to mapping. And we also have a laser rangefinder. So combined laser rangefinder with the GPS, RTK precision, you can actually pinpoint any sites anywhere and drop a pin on the map, and that pin gets synchronized to the cloud platform FlightHub 2. which is the platform we use for all the flight management when it comes to Dock. So Joshua and Brian, I'm not sure if you guys have seen or have been using prior drone models like Phantom 40K. I remember back in the time. But this is crazy to think about. We're only like, this is 7 years. 7 years after that, now we have a system that is RTK positioned and with all the sensors equipped on this platform. And the dock, one thing I forgot to mention is the dock itself is a RTK base station, right? So that's something you can reference from and you can calibrate from. So the dock, as long as you know the accurate coordinates of where the dock is placing at, you can apply that coordinate to offset the location of the dock, and from that point on, all the data collected from the drone is accurate also, because the drone is using the dock as a base station there. Okay, with enough talking about the hardware, this is just showing you the operation temperature as well as IP rated. The max flight time for the dock is about 54 minutes. So if we extract the takeoff, flying to the waypoint, landing, we're talking about effective flight time is still over 40 minutes. And it's about 25 kilometers, about 15 miles transmission distance, maximum transmission distance, that is with no obstacle in between. Okay, so next is getting pretty interesting. We're having some features specifically designed for construction users. And we also have automatic workflow functionalities I'd like to go through as well. But before that, there are a few pain points here we like to discuss. And this is specifically related to drone in the box, or overall, not drone in the box, drone operations when it comes to construction. Like Joshua, you mentioned there's a lot of data that needs to be captured, lots of data to be captured, and a variety of data type needs to be captured also. So you may need to collect photos, videos, panorama photos. You might need to collect thermal also. It's something like a lot of data needs to be collected, and these data, or these raw data we say, doesn't really mean much unless you know how to convert them into a valuable data or something you can use and get numbers or values out of it. Could you describe the general use cases and applications with drones in within the White's company, Joshua?
Absolutely, all of the above. I mean, we have a number of projects that are flying multiple times a week for just the site progress monitoring, data collection. We typically will fly orthomosaic mapping missions. We will fly orbits around structures. We will fly orbits around the entire project site. We will collect video data. One of the biggest uses that I have seen grown, or actually I've really driven the growth of in the last couple of years, is that storytelling component. Okay, so we're collecting all of this complex data. That is great for our teams. It is great for our project teams to help them make decisions. It's great for our VDC team to incorporate and track progress and verify installation of certain equipment and material. But we're working for a client, and a client that is spending sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars on this project. And there is a story to be told with how that project is going, how it is proceeding. And we have seen a lot of value in that data collection video. We've hired a video specialist within our team, works very, very closely with Brian. Brian was tasked with kind of doing a lot of video editing, processing. And we now have, a majority of our large projects, we have a weekly video deliverable that we deliver to the client. And the purpose of that content is not just to show them the progress, but it's also contributory to the story of the build and the progress. And a lot of our clients are using that for marketing material. They're having us help them with marketing material. We're using it as marketing material. It's absolutely great. On the flip side of that, we have that asset inspection site. We've actually procured quite a few minis and Avatas and smaller DJI drones, and we're flying interiors of projects. We're also collecting data with ground gimbals and 360 cameras, but we're continuously monitoring and tracking installation of work interior on the interior of these projects. And the drones that we're using in that aspect of things give us a little bit of a different perspective than a 6-foot person, visual line of sight, eye level, what they can see, right? So it's contributory data to get that information. We have a number of I don't want to downplay the safety side of this. Drones allow us to look at things in a lot safer manner than putting a person up in a lift to get up on a roof, or to get in a situation that could potentially be hazardous, right? So we're utilizing drones in that regards in a number of different ways. We do have a number of projects that early, during the earthwork phase, the civil phase, are tracking quantities and looking at calculations, reviewing pay apps and comparing that with the drone data. We had a very interesting project in Virginia where they were removing, it was a really rocky project, and they were removing large boulders. And the earthwork sub, or the sub that was moving these boulders, came up with this calculation, and it was one of the first projects we were using a Phantom 4 to do this data analysis, but I think we evaluated that they were about 50 truckloads heavy on moving that. And so we were able to kind of verify that. It opened it up for conversation, and we were able to save us a little bit money and be a lot more accurate. And then we were monitoring that on a regular basis to assure that it was following the schedule that they had provided us, the number of truckloads of this material that they were moving off site. It was a very interesting kind of study that we were doing on that project. And again, it proved extremely valuable. And so it translated to a number of other projects.
And Brian, I also have a question for you. So when it comes to drone in the box specifically, based on your experience with Joshua, what was, I guess it seems like these data can be also captured by non-dock drones. If you have a dedicated pilot on site, ideally speaking, if you have a dedicated pilot on site and have a drone on site, how would that make a difference to use the dock?
Yeah, so we
have a dock on site, and what I guess it depends on the how frequent you need to capture the data from, right? Just like Josh mentioned earlier, perhaps if you collect the data once a day, sure, you can still involve pilot in, but yeah, I will leave that to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the docks are really a force multiplier. Being able to, there's a lot of time that is taken going out on a site, setting up, making sure that you've got a clear space to fly, filling out all of your paperwork, launching the drone, landing it, going back into the trailer. There's a lot of time that is wasted setting up and taking down. And so I think that the drone docks, being able to launch a drone, go through all your documentation and pre-flight checklists and everything, and launch the drone within a minute or less, and be able to fly that from your office or wherever you're doing work, it allows you to save a lot of man hours and time. And also just having that peace of mind that if you do have a little bit of a rainy day or something like that, you're not grounded. If you need to capture, the information still, that the dock and the Matrice 4D is, IP rated, and if you need to capture that information, you can still fly. I was going to talk a little bit though. So one of the first docks that we purchased and kind of drove some of the larger adoption of the docks at White's, we had a project in West Texas that the client came to us, well, early on in the project, they were big advocates of having drones on the project, and they wanted to see these drone deliverables throughout the project. So they wrote it into their contract that they wanted weekly drone flights. And so we had a drone pilot assigned to the project team when the project started. And after a month or two of the project going, this pilot actually ended up leaving that project team and left us without a pilot on the project, and put us in this situation where we were required by contract to have these drone flights, but we didn't have a pilot on project. So ended up being my job to fly out to West Texas every 2 weeks and fly the drone on the project. And it was a big lift and a lot of travel. It was way out in the middle of nowhere, oil field country. And we started, I proposed the idea of putting a drone dock solution out at the site, and the client and the project team were very receptive of that, and they wanted to look at it. So we worked with getting the waiver approved out there and got a dock out there, and it's been running and has been fantastic. And the DJI Dock 3 was really important to be out there because West Texas, you've got dust storms and it's hot, and there's all of the it's very extreme weather conditions. So it's great to have a dependable and reliable system out there, and also just makes the client happy because I can fly now. I don't have to be there on site, so I can fly much more often than even 1 week or once a week. We can fly multiple times a week. And I mean, just yesterday, project team they were giving a project update, and they said, hey, can you give us like a video of the site conditions so that we can talk to it and give this project update? And so within 30 seconds, I launched the drone, from logging onto the computer, launched the drone, did a pre-programmed mission video flight, and was able to send it over to the project team, and it worked really well. So I think for us, the dock solutions make sense when either one, you don't have a pilot on site, that you really need that data captured regularly, but you don't want to, either it's hard to send a pilot out there, or you just doesn't make sense time-wise. Or if you were wanting to capture that regular or frequent capture, the dock solution and system just makes so much sense to be able to capture that large scale data or that much data that frequently. So
yeah,
you can sorry, I'm going to jump in here real quick. You can see the dock sitting behind Brian right now. That dock is getting ready to be deployed at one of our new campuses. And Brian's absolutely right. I mean, we have seen a lot of value. That product in Texas was becoming an absolute frustration because of the amount of travel and having to send Brian out there. And then just the frequency of data collection was driving that need. And that's what we're seeing on the project.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. The frequency definitely is one key aspect when you're viewing, and that helps justify why a system is needed. I think the other aspect I personally observed is going to be that unknown factor coming from the drone pilot. If you have a pilot operating these manually over and over again, these data might not be comparable. I know it doesn't really make much of a sense. It's the same mission, you just fly over and over again, right? How is the data output is going to be different? Well, you never know. There's a lot of like camera settings, a lot of things, firmware, and just over and over again. I feel like when operating docks, especially since now we have the capability for doing automation, that's something you basically forget about when it comes to the data capture and over again once you set it up.
One thing I'll add to that too is it's not just having a drone pilot on site, but you can have your best drone pilot on site. And so it opens it up to, if you want to capture some a little bit more advanced missions, rather than just going up and doing a normal mapping mission and some photos. We're doing a lot with 3D Gaussian splatting, and capturing a good splat is it's a bit of an art, and it takes a lot of practice, and then you have to have a little bit of an eye for it. And so being able to set up those missions and run them and adjust them as, you know, sites change, steel goes up, things like that, it's really nice having the control, you know, from the people that know what data you need to collect to be able to have a good deliverable, to have your best pilots being able to operate the dock. And so rather than having your best pilots go around to all your sites to capture these advanced deliverables, you can just have them remote into the dock and fly them. So
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the deliverable, one of the audience is kind of asking, Joshua, since you mentioned about incorporated drone data, deliverables from the drone data with other technology like 360 cam, terrestrial scanner, how are you incorporate these? Like, are you like, how do you ensure the data captured from the drone can be incorporated with other data you collected? For example, interior.
I'm going to let Brian speak to that a little bit more, but he mentioned the Gaussian splats, and that's something that we're doing more and more of. We're actually looking 2026, making some investments to bolster our capabilities there. We use platforms, you know, I know the focus of this conversation is on the DJI products, but we do leverage other products, drone deploy ground. We're using Revisto, which, you know, allows us to bring a lot of that different data into the system to compare it against 3D models. It's what we're finding is kind of the sky's the limit, and it varies from project to project depending on the need, the demand, and what is proving useful at the time. And figuring out the right solution. Again, the dock and the software that we're utilizing in relation to that data is just enhancing the ability for us to get more accurate and up-to-date data on regular intervals without having to burden you know, project staff. You know, typically we don't have dedicated pilots, right? That, hey, that is their full-time job, traveling around the country flying drones. It is typically in addition to somebody else's day job, and they need to have the ability and the time to do that. And we incorporate that. We give them the time that they need to fly, but it's not a daily, you know, event or even a, you know, every other day. The dock allows us to do that and to do it more often. And then we have the data that we can incorporate as needed to get that full picture of, you know, progress, installation, all the other aspects, and then allows us to mix that data with, you know, our other software systems based on the need.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to cover some functionality. For example, just the kind of features allow users to kind of apply to the drone data, so the data can later on incorporate better with other systems. So the FlightHub 2 is the platform that we used to operate and manage drone data. So when it comes to the FlightHub 2, earlier this year, we have launched several AEC related functionalities. Just providing a list here, just for example, first, project coordinate system settings. You can now set projection coordinate systems and apply that to the project. So when you're processing, doing cloud process, reconstruction, you can apply the coordinate system, so make sure the data matched up. We also support PDF or DXF design overlay, so you can overlay your design on top of the map as a layer. Mission planning, that's something we have. So interesting thing is we have supported obstacle data bypassing or obstacle bypassing functionality with our mission planning. So let's say if you have a cell tower or water tower, right? There, something high, and you want to kind of set up a fixed altitude flight planning route. You can apply that obstacle data, so it bypass that area. So for area like a crane, for example, you know, that's very uncertain when the crane is gonna turn and at what angle, right? That's something you can set up now and do a mapping mission with. Reconstruction over on the cloud, that's something we have, so you can process and output 2D mesh, 3D model directly from the platform. The data timeline visualizer is something you can do, comparing the time captured over time. For example, on the photos captured for inspection purpose, or the model comparison over time when it comes to the volume tracking. So that's something we have as part of the analyzer tool. So of course you can do measurements like linear line measurements, volumetric measurements, area measurements directly within the platform now. And with the volume analyzer, you can do things like the drone capture the photos and reconstruct the 3D model for this week, and next week it does that using the same mission you created, and it does processing as part of the automation and compare the model between to get the volume differences or the volume change over time. You can do this and accumulate your results, and it outputs a report to you showing you the differences there. Of course, you have the report functionality built into it. You can output these measurements and volume differences in a report and get that sent to you by email. And automation workflow is kind of a summary of what we have talked about when it comes to getting the mission executed, maybe once a week or twice a week, for example, and get the data processed in the way you want and get the deliverable out, whether you want 2D map or 3D mesh model, and also apply that analyzer tool for getting the measurements out over time.
Yeah,
so some
that
yeah,
too.
Go ahead, Brian.
So first, I love using FlightHub too. There's just some really powerful tools in here. One of my favorite tools is just that geofencing and work area fencing that you can do with FlightHub too. I've done a lot of testing with it, and on a lot of our waivers flying within. Sometimes we'll doing a lot of this aviation work on airports where we'll be building out a new terminal. A lot of times we're working right next to active runways. On one of our projects, we actually work with the tower, and if we need to fly over an active taxiway, we'll shut the taxiway down so that we can go and map it. Like this very active areas that we're flying in, and so being able to have that reliable task area and geofence is super important, and it's actually a requirement of our waivers. And so one of my favorite functionalities of FlightHub 2 is that. And then was also going to say, one of our projects, we're building a massive project here in Iowa, data center project, and we've been running the DJI Dock 3 most of the year on that project, and just the automated workflow has made that super nice. We've captured, I don't know how much data we've captured, but a ton. And we will, at 9 a.m. it'll go and fly the east parcel of the project, and it'll fly half of it, stop, come back, charge. Only takes 20-30 minutes to charge up, and then it'll go and finish that mission. And then at noon it goes and flies the west parcel of the land, and we're capturing 6,000-7,000 photos on every single time that it goes out and flies. And so being able to automate the mapping and the 3D model and the analyzers and all of that just is a huge plus of FlightHub, and just makes being able to pull information from that data where we're flying so regularly. We need a good way to look at how that data changes over time, and FlightHub 2 makes that really simple.
Yeah, so this is the site I think, Brian, you have been working on with a Dock 3. And yeah, just one example showing up there on the safety side. If there's any crewed aircraft or manned aircraft is nearby, the sensor, there's a sensor to pick up whether there's a aircraft, and it shows the location on the map if it gets close to where the drone is. Just kind of telling the operators there might be some potential hazard there to avoid. you want to give us more information on this site project specifically, Brian, when it comes to the Dock 3 setup?
Yeah. So we have quite a few drone docks on the site actually now. We started just with Dock 2, and then we added the Dock 3, and the Dock 3 was a huge success, I think, and so we've added a couple more Dock 3s on the site. But this is a very large site, a couple thousand people working on these data center projects. The Dock 3 that I was kind of focused on talking about, it lives kind of in the center of the project, so that way it has easy access to both sides of the entire campus. And we, other than just mission planning, we had some specific like trenches and things that we were digging and wanted daily reports on, and so we had, other than just like the twice a day missions that we were doing, we were also doing like these it was tying into a schedule management program, and so we were flying these specific missions to tie into that program. And it really, the automation was amazing on this, just very hands off. We just had to have somebody, you know, watching the drone do its thing. So
it's a scheduled type of a mission, and it seems like it's pretty large mission. Took over an hour to complete. So by doing that, do you have like a VO on site for monitoring?
Yeah, multiple pilots on site, and then obviously a special waiver to fly this close to an airport. But yeah, no, just made it very easy. Flying twice a day, it would be a full-time job for 1 or 2 pilots to be able to capture this much data and be able to process it and do all the reporting and everything. And so being able to automate all this through FlightHub 2 was a huge time saver and force multiplier. And
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
You can see from the speed and stuff, we were flying these projects. We got a waiver to fly all the way up to 300 feet on these projects, and so we were flying, yeah. So I think 325. I think it was, yeah, with the building and terrain following and stuff. But we were flying quite fast. I love how fast the Matrice 4D can map, and really was able to capture a lot of data very quickly.
It always amazes me that, you know, looking back at, you know, early days, Phantom 3 and Phantom 4, I mean, we were mapping at 7 miles an hour and, you know, 20 megapixel camera, and, you know, it was, you're flying even at 7 miles an hour, you get, you know, kind of that motion blur, and it would mess up your entire map. And now we're flying at, you know, almost 50 miles an hour, collecting data.
Yeah.
It's awesome, moving in the right direction.
I remember that with mechanical shutter, time interval shots about like 2 seconds. Now it's 0.5, 0.7 seconds, and with mechanical shutter you can fly fast and capture data fast, and longer flight time, not to mention, so you don't have to change the battery frequently. What a difference there. So this is just one example for the project Brian was talking about, and over time we processed I think we processed all the mapping image within FlightHub directly because it has a cloud reconstruction functionality, and over time, if you accumulate these also mosaics, or if you accumulate these models, it's gonna show up as a timeline, because so you can do time travel essentially to go back to a certain time of the day, check if there's things different. So this kind of helps align better when it comes to evidence. So This is one example. You can select a certain area within the analyzer and apply that area for detailed multi-phase model volume change detection. So over time, it's going to detect the volume change over that specific area you draw and provides you a report when it comes to the cut, fill, volume differences there. I'm getting a question. Can we get in touch to discuss in more detail the possibilities of importing DXF for volume calculation versus progress photos? Yeah, so you can import design file DXF and you can use that as a foundation to measure the volume and calculate the difference between your design to the model. That's something you can do within FlightHub 2. Okay, we're gonna have Brian talk about more when it comes to the use cases on the drone in the box or Dock 3. Woods, you want to? Sorry, Brian, you want to take over?
Sure. I might just pull out this little Matrice 4D because I've got it here and I'll talk with it. So just thought I'd pull it out and talk with this. But I love this drone. It just makes a lot, just helps a ton with our workflows. I talked a little bit about this earlier with the no need for pilot on every site. So this picture in the background is actually our West Texas site, and Josh talked a little bit about where we came from with docks, and it was very hands-on. You know, we were constantly going out and checking on the dock, and you know, the drone would get stuck, and we'd have to go out and like manually come back, bring the drone back down. All that's gone away with the DJI Dock 3. It's very robust. I haven't had an issue where I've needed to send somebody out to check on the dock, or that I've had to go out and look at the dock. So since we've set it up, it's been completely autonomous and hasn't needed any maintenance or anything that we've done to it so far. I think that the drone is probably needs some prop change here soon, but just being in the sun so much. But other than that, I think that this dock has been fantastic in West Texas. So I talked a little bit about how I was flying out to the site every 2 weeks. So I think, you know, rather at White's we have a very strict or very detailed training program for our pilots, and so being able to cut out having to train a whole new pilot to go to a site and being able to have, you know, the pilots that you currently have on your staff be able to fly multiple projects, it just makes so much sense. And then having that expertise at every location, being able to, whether it's marketing videos or you know, doing some of those complex deliverables, things like that, we're really able to do a lot with the dock solutions. And then one thing also is when you do have your best pilots flying the dock, you know that they're going to be filling out the documentation and making sure that safety is controlled on site. And so we're the White's company, we have a huge focus on safety. Safety is our #1 priority, and having these dock solutions help with safety in a number of ways, but having those experienced pilots that are tried and tested help us to eliminate, you know, maybe some of those rogue pilots that do things that would be a little bit more risky. So I can keep going on here, and we're kind of coming close on time. But more data with less work, just being able to, you know, fly all the time, be able to collect this data we've talked a lot about this already, but just being able to have this workflow completely automated through FlightHub and being able to go out and fly when you need it, it's really helped our project teams a lot. So I feel like I've kind of covered a lot of our use cases for this. The drone gets out of the box and starts flying. I've timed it, and I mean, sometimes it's like 20 seconds from when I hit go to the drone's up and flying. And so very, very fast. If there's ever like a security or an incident that happens on site, we can, go and document that with the drone, or check something out. If, all the drone dock needs is power and internet. So if it's plugged in and everybody's off site and, something happens, or, somebody sees something on a camera that we need to go check out, we can launch the drone and immediately go over and check that out. And just being in West Texas, having that weather resilience has been awesome. So I think I see a question also that just says, how do you manage having a loss in internet connection? So on a few of our sites, we're using Starlink to connect the drone docks. There's not the best solution, but there's a few different internet solutions. I always run a dedicated internet connection to the drone dock, so we have a steady connection. If there's ever an issue where the drone gets disconnected from the internet, it automatically returns to home and lands itself, and you build into it an alternate landing site. So if it can't land in the dock by itself, it'll go and land in an alternate landing site, and have really been impressed with the robustness and all the safety that's around the docks. DJI has really thought of everything when it comes to making sure that these are safe to use. So
yeah, we have a signal lost action. So the drone would perform the action when there's a signal lost. So one of them, just like Brian mentioned, would be return to home. The others you can do is to hover and until you gain that signal back. But that's something we recommend, is just to get the drone back to home and return to home. So there are a lot of safety designs. For example, the dock itself has a battery built in. So if there's loss of power, there's still enough juice to have the box open and have the drone come back to the dock when there's a power loss there. Okay, I think that's everything about today. Well, I am getting a few questions here, and if you have more questions, please feel free to ask in the questions for Brian and Joshua. I am getting a question about the licensing. So how does that work if I have 3 Dock 3s and am having a budget for 6 drones? Can I have 2 drones per dock and continuous 24/7 operation? So it's 1 drone per dock. You can switch drones for a dock. However, you have to get on the site for doing that. Not really seeing the purpose for doing this though, because the drone gets charged, like Brian mentioned, pretty quick. In about 30 minutes, 20 minutes, have enough juice to complete and to continue the task afterwards. So the audience was asking if the license work per dock or per drone. So that is a great question. So we have a license per dock or per online device. That is the enterprise version license. But most users will probably just use a pro version that applies per organization. So by per organization, that has no limit to number of docks or number of drones. So they share the quota there when it comes to live stream, when it comes to data process and storage. Okay, so it looks like we have a few more minutes there to kind of answer more of your questions there.
Yeah, I know that we talked a little bit about it, but just with the integration piece with other technologies, I think that, you know, with the amount of data that we're capturing here, we try to look for those platforms that can integrate the 360 camera footage, the laser scanning data, the drone data, all of that in one place, so that we can let our project teams do what they do best and not have to, you know, sort through 10 different programs um, to find the data that they need. And so using FlightHub 2 and automating that and everything, getting it into the format that we need and into the programs that we need, using the different plugins and things like that has really helped. And that's a big key of when, like at White's, when we choose a program, we want to make sure that it can do as much as possible. Maybe it's not the best at what it does, but it being able to do everything at a well is kind of what we look at a lot. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yeah, that certainly is. Looks like I'm getting another question about processing. So is there a FlightHub 2 and Terra Online training for advanced users? So I recommend to go to YouTube and search DJI Academy. We have a channel providing trainings when it comes to processing, photogrammetry, and everything. I'm actually having another video upcoming soon, or actually two or several videos upcoming. I'll post all the videos there. So looks like this one is for you guys also. What type of VMS solution do you recommend for a control room setup?
so like a virtual machine, or is that like virtual machine? I'm trying to think. VMS.
I believe this is for operation. So to control the drone, well, unless you want to do the manual data capture, you can operate the drone via keyboard. So I hate to say this, but it is like a video game there. So you use WSAD to control the drone, and you use the keys C and Z to adjust the altitude. So when you're operating the drone, the computer itself is like a remote computer, a remote controller there. You can, and I have seen people using a remote controller at the actual joystick to kind of map out these keys and for better control. But when it comes to construction, I think for most application, Brian Joshua is currently working on. Most of the missions are going to be automated, if that's right, Brian Joshua. Yeah. So for those type of missions, they are kind of a pre-planned ahead of time, whether it's like mapping task. Brian was showing there, and a waypoint there for inspection, or patrol flight there. That's something you all do automatically.
I think it is really nice though to have that manual capability, so that if there is something like on a roof that you want to see, you can go take a picture of, that you can, you know, manually fly that drone over, you know, remotely over the internet and be able to go and take specific pictures or videos of what you're looking for. So I've used that a number of times and it's been very helpful. So.
Oh, VMS, video management system. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So the video management system is indeed something we have. So you can kind of customize the layout, and you basically have a web page open up, and you can get live stream from the dock, from the drone, from specifically which camera of the drone. That's something you can customize there as well. Yes, we do have something like that.
It's very nice when you're mapping, because your main payload is looking at the ground. Very nice to be able to look out your FPV or your sensor cameras, and be able to make sure that you're not going to run into a crane or something, or a tree or something like that. So
yeah, we use that a lot when it comes to serving tasks, because like you said, Brian, when you're doing serving job, likely you're gonna have the camera in the deer to the ground, and you just don't know where you're flying to, right? So having that view on the vision assistance cams from or around the camera, that definitely helps.
And I think we're asking, can we fly at night under our BVLOS? And yes, under our BVLOS, we do have night flight capability.
And when it comes to the security breach, we do have a speaker attachment or spotlight attachment that you can apply it on top of these drones, and they are officially from DJI, so they integrate well with our platform. Something you can do is you can enable the spotlight and enable the speaker to kind of getting that one directional communication to the site when there's a security breach there. Looks like we're having some audience asking for DXF tutorial. So when it comes to design file overlay, there are two ways for doing the calibration. Essentially, that is just aligning the design file to the FlightHub 2 map layer. So there are two ways for doing this, and I actually have some slides here to show you that. So to align this, there are two ways for doing this. One is to do it to down the calibration via the already known coordinate system. So if you have, let's say, a design file, you would like to overlay that on top of the map layer, you just apply the coordinate system from the DXF, and you type that coordinate system in the FlightHub 2 platform, so they automatically align. Or something you can do is you apply visual checkers or visual markers for like file like PDF. You basically align these two layers by dropping markers and aligning them manually. So these are the two methods we support when it comes to design file alignment there. So looks like we have more audience asking about the connection. Now,
Yeah.
Brian, is the Starlink connection down via Wi-Fi or wired?
So yeah, it's a wired connection. The dock does take a wired Ethernet connection.
So actually, we don't support wireless connection with the Dock 3. So when you have the like a Starlink, that is gonna be a Starlink now these days they're making a form factor smaller and smaller. The Starlink itself is a Wi-Fi router essentially. It has Ethernet output. You just basically connect the Ethernet from the Starlink to the dock to get it to work.
Yeah, and I know some of our clients, they require specific network firewalls to be put in place, and so the Dock 3 being able to have that wired connection and running through a router, we're able to set up those specific firewalls and things to conform to the client's specifications. So yeah, we're able to run these on some very sophisticated sites as well.
Okay, so looks like that will be all for today's webinar. Thank you so much, Brian and Joshua, for your time to our audience. And these are very valuable insights to our audience. And yeah, we definitely appreciate you joining us. And yeah, well, hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone.